Hey everybody, TacticAngel back on the PlayStation 5 to take a look at another premium ship in World of Warships Legends. This time we'll be looking at the Niord, a Tier 8 premium pan-European battleship. We'll start with some history, move into analysis, hit the stats, and then finish off with some gameplay. If you want to skip around, there are time codes below to help you out. Now, I don't want to call this a history section technically, but I would direct you towards my review of Karl XIV Johan to talk about the situation of the Swedish Navy between World War I and World War II. Where the Niord is maybe a bit more realistic than Karl is that Niord is based on the German battlecruiser design GK 4541. That plan serves as the same basis for Prince Ruprecht, which is at least to say that it's based on something a little bit more definitive than that Germany built battleships historically and could have maybe built a battleship for Sweden, because at least we have an early design for it. The GK 4541 design never was built because it definitionally couldn't in a couple of different ways. This sketch is from March 1916 and was intended to show how Germany could rebuild after the war was over. Germany couldn't build it at the time because Jutland, as much as it might have demonstrated how Germany went toe-to-toe with the greatest navy on Earth at the time and scored several dramatic victories, it was a Pyrrhic victory for the German Navy if ever there was one. There was too much battle damage to repair for the relatively young German naval industry, and they already had more than a few hulls under construction that similarly would never be finished. Sweden buying one of these is marginally more realistic, but they weren't flush with cash. These ships are probably too large to operate within Swedish doctrine, in between the thousands of little islands that dot their coastline, and famously, World War I was the war to end all wars. If that's how it was sold, I'd kind of want my money back. The second definitional hurdle is that this design kind of assumes that Europe is gassed, and by 1916, it does at least look like the war will eventually fizzle out. When America joins the war in April 1917, that tips the scale and eventually contributes to terms that prohibit the construction of this ship or anything remotely like it in Germany. So where this kind of takes a step backwards is that this is a ship that Germany wasn't allowed to build, being sold to a Sweden that at the time didn't think it would need it, couldn't afford it, and wouldn't have wanted this much ship in the first place. It's pretty much the same as Karl XIV Johan in that respect. It's made a little bit more ridiculous by being armed, curiously, with the 38cm SKC 34 main battery, which would probably be better known as the Bismarck's guns. Curious because if this was transferred to Sweden in 1920, the guns wouldn't start development for another 14 years after that, and didn't enter service within Germany until 1940. Most countries don't start building a capital ship without a gun, much less go into projects they can't afford with an IOU for a main battery to be delivered in 20 years from the country you're most likely to have to fight against. Honestly, I don't know why we keep getting these monster battleships with German weapons when they could say, hey, they sold this Mackensen-class battleship, this happens to be Prince Eitel Friedrich, to Sweden and pretend the Bofors company could kit this out with something. It's still probably too expensive and probably too much boat, but it would go a little bit towards being more believable. Anyway, as far as Niord, the name, it's a reference to Njordur, spelled this way in Old Norse, who is a Vanir god. In modern Swedish, you'd be more likely to see it spelled with a J, but this is how they spelled it with the Odin, with an E class, coastal defense ship laid down in 1898. So this ship would continue the fine Swedish tradition of naming ships after mythological figures. As far as Niord in Legends, she's the second pan-European battleship at Tier 8, next to Karl XIV Johan. And if you go into Niord thinking that this is anything like Karl, you're gonna be a little bit disappointed. And it's for exactly the same reason you'd be disappointed if you looked at this and said, that kinda looks like a German battleship, kinda looks like Prince Ruprecht, does not play like Prince Ruprecht. So what does it do? Well, the Niord has 15-inch guns. As far as 15-inch guns go, the reload is a bit faster than normal. It does legitimately have a lot of torpedoes, 10 on each side with good range and speed, and a respectable reload. Though they don't do a lot of damage, these do provide you with several opportunities to add some aquatic damage to your theoretically fast-firing guns. And we'll see if I can figure out a third good thing to say about this ship before my video comes out. But if you're hearing this, then I probably didn't. As far as the negatives of Niord, she's got a terrible amount of hit points for a battleship. She has a terrible secondary battery. She suffers from range problems because there isn't really a commander designed to make the main battery work. That basically means that you end up with an undergunned ship that has to get perilously close to its target, not only because its max range without a pay-to-win commander is 19.1 kilometers, unless I am mistaken, but it's going to be a lot less than that if you make any other choices or don't have maxed out inspirations. So who is going to like Niord? Well, if you don't have a tier 8 battleship, a free one certainly wouldn't hurt. I'm afraid there isn't much going on in the gameplay that would make you enjoy it more, unless you're just looking for something to play against the very predictable bot opponents that you can find in certain game modes. I suppose the other contingent of people are those who expect that there will be a viable commander choice in the near future. I envy those people, particularly if they can meet every challenge in life with similar optimism. Someone will tell me that they had a good game in this once, and I'm sure that you did. I'm not saying that you can't, but Niord is a not very good ship, and some of the things you'd need in order to help it out simply don't exist for her currently. So we'll jump into stats. Insert normal disclaimer here. Niord starts with 63,900 hit points, which ties for the least HP at the tier with, perhaps unsurprisingly, the Prince Ruprecht. Since that's theoretically the same hull, you might be a bit surprised to see the 18 to 360 value for her armor. Both of these are less than Ruprecht, but if we look at the actual model, you're probably getting the better deal than that ship. Where Ruprecht has a 27mm bow with a 30mm icebreaker, you have a 32mm bow and a 32mm icebreaker. Good job. This does mean that Niord can bow tank pretty much anything up to the Yamato class. From the front, the casemate shot traps are not present, though you do still have them on the rear, in spite of not having those guns. Like Ruprecht, you have a belt that is up to 300mm with no turtleback protecting your waterline citadel, and you should expect the exact kind of results when taking shots to your broadside. You come with a very low 20% torpedo protection, 5% lower than most German battleships. For artillery, the Niord has 4 twin turrets with German 38cm SKC 34 guns. This is effectively the same arrangement as the Tirpitz, a ship that is both a tier down but also has nearly 6,000 more hit points than Niord. But the rear turret does have a 360 turret rotation, more like German battlecruisers. These have a 17-kilometer range, which is 200 meters shorter than average and 400 meters less than Tirpitz. They have a swift 24-second reload at the tier 30 for the turret rotation is also fast. Damage numbers line up exactly with Tirpitz, meaning HE damage is just a low 4,400 and 11,600 is good for the size of the gun, but a bit low for a tier 8 battleship. 24-second reload is 1 second faster than Tirpitz and 9 seconds faster than Pommern, meaning that if you work out damage over time, you're about 10% worse than Pommern and below average for both HE and AP. Quite a bit different than either the German battleships or the Karl XIV Johann, the secondary battery has both the joint lowest range among tier 8 battleships and just 6 twin turrets, 12 little guns in all, and puts out about 20% less damage over time. I have had all of these knocked out in at least 3 games, so I think they don't have many hit points. In theory, you make up for this by having a lot of torpedoes. 2 racks of 5 per side with sort of forever range, and even if the VIII has 1 more kilometer than 14, these are going to get out to that sort of range a lot faster. 86 knots is absurdly fast for a couple of reasons. The reload isn't that fast, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, which is the same on Karl. And like other Swedish torpedoes, they do low damage, just 10,700, so you will have to hit several to kill even the least healthy ship at the tier, so I guess it's good that you have 20 of them. Niord also has potent AA. The 94 rating is earned by the very good amount of damage at 5.2 kilometers, 146. Then throw on another 365 at 3.5. And this is going to be pretty dissuasive early, and it's going to be very quickly assertive about asking planes to go away. This is about 12% more AA than average, and it all has a pretty good range. Niord's maneuverability is also decent. 32 knots is 2 knots faster than the increasingly oversized battleships that we see at this tier, and she also turns about 50 meters better than them. With more than a second advantage with her rudder shift, all of these are good numbers to have at tier 8. Concealment is also a relative strength. You're still a battleship, so you're going to lose every spotting game you play except with other battleships. And in this case, you're about 500 meters less detectable by sea, 400 from the sky, and the 13.8 is very stealthy for 15-inch guns firing in smoke, but I doubt that will come up very often. As we come to consumables, you do have an unlimited number of repair parties. That means this 15-second duration and 80-second reload is standard, but that is relatively good news considering how many times we've heard Prince Ruprecht mentioned so far. Unfortunately, your heal is just a bit worse than your hypothetical sister. You get 3 charges, 0.5% each. This is a normal number and a normal amount of health to be repaired. You get standard sonar too, so this isn't long-range German stuff, then a standard secondary mod. If you were expecting something interesting here, my apologies. No choices, nothing special, but at least you've got all those damage cons. And as we jump into some gameplay, I have a joke for you. I was talking to my buddy JC about this ship, and I said, what do you get if you take a Tirpitz, put her a tier up, with less hit points, no secondaries, but Swedish torpedoes and AA? The answer? Probably Mini Gumo instead. Anyway, we'll go ahead and put our commander up on the screen. I am running Conrad Hilfrich. The objectives here are not real clear. This is mostly like, yeah, it might as well just juice the things that this thing's already good at, which is a little bit more speed, a little bit more AA, a little bit more stealth, and then we've got a couple inspirations that are helping us a bit with range. Now, one thing that I did say when I was talking about the DPM of this ship, it's not good. And the overpen possibilities of this ship are also not good. You've just got the 15-inch guns, so you're going to have to get either the right angles on ships, or you're going to have to shoot a lot of HE. And there are situations where both of those might seem like good ideas, and that's true. It's not just seems like a good idea. It's absolutely true that you're going to have to do a bit of both. The reload is going to allow you to more quickly get back and forth between the different shell types. You can see we've got a Navarin out there. The Navarin is not a particularly good ship, and it has pretty bad armor and a lot of shot traps. Unfortunately, he is turning in such a way that isn't helping me at the moment. I'm taking advantage of my low sea detectability, so hopefully he shows off his whole broadside, which it looks like he's happy to do. He doesn't get punished very much for it. The unfortunate thing is
nice work
that he turned out in such a way that he avoided all the torpedoes I shot at him. And that's too bad. You can definitely see they're fast and they go far. You could do more with the torpedoes if you really wanted to. I don't know how useful that is. Obviously, we can stealth shoot our torpedoes here with 14-kilometer range and a 12.2 kilometer sea detectability. And 12.2 is pretty good, actually. I think as is, I probably could beat out some cruisers. And if I really wanted to lean into it, you could get this quite a bit further down. Maybe at that point, oh no, I hope I'm not having a revelation about how you're supposed to play this ship, but you could swap out an inspiration. You could swap out 2. And then you'd be a pretty stealthy 15-inch battleship with 14-kilometer torpedoes. You can see that Navarin has definitely a secondary build. Edinburgh has made a mistake here. He has been spotted. We're going to throw some shells out at him. He obviously recognizes the peril that he's in, but not before we land one citadel. Navarin is getting close enough that you'd think that I could actually hit it. I think that the gun performance on this is actually, though I compared it a lot to the Tirpitz, a bit better than that. Similarly with Pommern, I think the gun performance is also marginally better than that. Certainly the angles and the 360 turret on the back, you can see, is providing me with some additional utility. I'm going to tuck in here behind the island, and if they're happy to let me take this now, I will be happy to do so. My opening thoughts are that I wanted to get on the outside, if I possibly could. Our relatively good speed and relatively good stealth give us a little bit more opportunity on this map to do so. And so it looks like we're going to be able to cap this base. And we catch sight of the Edinburgh again. I think I probably had a moment there where I wanted to go around the other side, but I do so ever much enjoy shooting at cruisers. With the Battleship, we probably did something wrong there in terms of our aim. And I decided to just go with the flow and kind of back up rather than push my luck. This isn't actually a ship you want to be all that close with. It doesn't have a lot of hit points, and as you saw, just with the Navarin and its secondaries, we took quite a bit of damage. Just moving up, it didn't actually pen anything all that important, but its secondaries chewed us up. I think that's what you're going to run into with a full stealth build. It's going to work great until it doesn't. Now we have demonstrated how 15-inch shells will bounce. Not a surprise, but they do. More bouncing. Also, maybe a good argument that I could be wrong about the gun performance. In any case, you've only got 4 guns and you have to do whatever you need to motivate yourself in this. We disable one of the Thunderer's forward guns. That's going to be helpful. VIII is out there. At this point, I'm making a little bit of a mental note. Should I go back and fix that I referenced the VIII as having long-range torpedoes? Or should I just leave it? I'm just going to leave it. The Wami's basically the same class. And a Wami's the one with torps. We do get 1 flood on the Thunder. That probably means that he is going to burn a damage control party as soon as he's able, but it does look like he continues to bleed out. We'll see if we can't make his life a little bit worse by setting him on fire. We do have 2 battleships to worry about. It's better that they shoot at me than shooting at the little cruiser, so we'll get out there and try to do our level best to tank some stuff and to draw some fire, but we're going to have to play a little bit with the angles. You saw we took a pen there. We're probably not going to want to show off our side much more than this, except if we catch him at just the right sort of like reload like point in his reload where we can just swing just a little bit and then swing back. The Thunder is shooting HE, and this is annoying. This happened to me so many times.
I hated her
Oh,
so
boy.
much. Flames on the side of my face, breathing, heaving breath.
Anyway, you can see this little icon on the screen. That means that all of my secondaries have been knocked out. That happened to me a lot in this ship. It might have been just that I went up against a lot of Royal Navy ships. I didn't record every time it happened to me, so that is subject to just my memory. Obviously, Royal Navy HE does a lot of damage, and it busts all sorts of stuff, and it probably has a large explosion radius. It's just all around annoying, but it's worth pointing out it's also my long-range AA, so that would be bad. We continue to shoot HE here because we don't expect to be able to pen much. Also, if you've got a lot of fish, which you can see we just launched 10 in a very tight spread towards the Heathen. You know, you've got the opportunity to play the dot game. So if we can continue to layer on more and more damage over time, eventually we'll win just by attrition. Our 15-inch shells aren't going to pen any other way other than farming overpens from the front. And that would be shooting the superstructure, and I don't want to do that. It's not a bad idea if I were worried about taking out his guns. I'm not right now. So I'll just shoot HE. It's free damage. The people who do it all the time aren't wrong about that. It's just maybe not always the best choice. It looks like we're capping the middle base. You can kind of see there is one ship that is kind of towards the edge of my main battery. Though we do have, as a reminder, a couple things working in our favor. In terms of range, we don't have enough. And like I said, you could get it up to 19.1, which should have allowed me to shoot at that, but even with an inspiration and a skill, it's not enough. And that feels kind of bad. Now we've speeded this up just a little bit because effectively two things are going to happen. Well, three things. The first thing is I'm going to sail into B. And I'm going to sail into B because the last spot on the cruiser is kind of on the opposite side of the map, so it's more or less on the way. Now, I would have suggested that we go ahead and cap this just in case something terrible were to happen to our ally who sailed out of the base, but there's only a couple minutes left in the game, so if he goes down, we probably lose without this cap. On the way, we do see that the Rochester is to the north now, and we start to turn that way. And if my anti-psychic powers are working, I'm going to chase this around the long way. He will have turned out, and that's true, just like the Navarin, dodging all my torpedoes because he was driving in a way that I couldn't predict. I have also misplayed this, and the game ends. That puts us into closing thoughts on Niord. I mean, if you play the game well, you can make all sorts of things work. There have been a lot of underwhelming campaign ships, but I think this one probably takes the cake. And I might be saying that just because Niord is not currently a good ship, which I guess is not uncommon, but currently it doesn't have a suitable commander either, and that is just worse. Free is the only suitable price for this ship right now, and even then I'd probably encourage people not to think about the opportunity cost if you choose Niord. Maybe it gets buffed in the future. I imagine it probably will. I can't see this ship performing all that well, but those are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are down below, and I'll see you on the next one.